Hi everybody and welcome to the Flute Practice. Today we're going to be looking at part 2 of our practice series and we're going to look at how to master your music. So let's go check it out. So for those of you who missed it, last week we spoke about learning new pieces. How do you go about learning new music? This week we're going to go on from that and we're going to look at how to really master that music, how to make that music absolutely concert ready. I would advise for those of you who didn't watch last week, go check it out. We're doing a wonderful 4-part practice series looking at different elements of practice. Next week we're looking at performance practice, how to practice performing, and the last week we're going to kind of tie the whole thing together and look at the overall structure of your practice session. Alright, so you've kind of learned your notes, you've got the basic idea of the piece, you might even have an idea musically kind of what's going on, and structurally kind of what's going on, but now it's time to really polish it up and make it amazing. The first thing you really want to do is you want to clean it up technically. You want to make sure that all your runs are, on point, that your sound is great, that, you're not having any kind of technical difficulties. So I kind of go through a process that I think is quite useful. So the first thing that I do is I really listen very, very, very carefully. I listen for any uneven runs, for any uneven fingers. I listen for any articulation problems. Is there fluffy articulation? Or for the legato runs, are my legato runs really completely smooth and even? I'm listening to my intervals. Are my intervals really smooth? Are there like cracks or cracked notes or squeaks or whatever in between my intervals or even within my runs? I'm really listening for any tiny little irregularity or anything that I don't want to be there. The next part is to really feel as well. Feel how you're feeling when you're playing certain parts. Are there parts where you're like, I played the right notes and it sounded good, but there was kind of a part of me that was like, phew, I just made it. Because that's not good. That you might be writing more luck than you want to in those moments. So I like to also feel, how am I feeling? Also emotionally, how are you feeling? Like, is this part giving you stress? Like, are you feeling like anxious when you get to this part? Because that's usually a sign that we need maybe just a little bit more practice there, or we need to practice in a feeling of calm and ease and, confidence in that moment rather than stress. I do find this listening process is really kind of like a learning process as well. You progressively learn to listen more intensively and more kind of exacting and accurately. This is what teachers are so helpful for, because they really teach you to be able to listen, because they often hear things that you don't hear. If you really play through your piece and you're not hearing anything, you're like, oh, I don't know, it sounds perfect, sounds great to me. I would really recommend recording yourself. And I do this a lot because, for any of you that don't have teachers or that have, haven't had lessons in a while, you know how important it is to listen with those like external pair of ears. And recording equipment, guys, it's awesome stuff. We get to do it. We get, we have the materials to just do it on your phone or whatever. So I'm serious. Just record yourself and listen. Listen very attentively to what you are actually doing rather than what you think you are doing. Once you've identified a little problem, you've heard something, you're like, okay, something's going on there. Stop and think. This is such an important step. We tend to kind of hear a problem and then we just play it over and over and over and over and over again. And either we are just playing the same problem over and over and over and over and over again, which, I mean, guys, like, you're just practicing the problem. Like, there's no point. Or we're trying to fix it, but we haven't actually taken the time to think about what we're doing. So stop, think. What is the problem? Like, where is the actual problem? What is the, like, nuclear fundamental core of my problem here? And you want to try and solve it, and you want to try and unpack it. Sometimes we don't always get to this immediately. Sometimes we have to kind of rely on our staple go-to, like, fix me uppers, doing things like in rhythms and doing things slowly and doing things with a metronome, all sorts of stuff like that. Sometimes we kind of discover the problem as we go, but you really want to constantly stop, think, what is the real problem? Now you need to go about solving the problem in this piece. So there are lots of ways you can do this. So metronome practice. So just putting on a really nice slow metronome. making sure you're really playing in time. Subdivide. So if you're playing semi-quavers, put your metronome on quavers, or even on those semi-quavers if you can really stand to annoy yourself. But putting it on quavers to make sure that your small beats are really lining up nicely. Sometimes we play big beats, but in that big beat, the notes are totally uneven. So little beats. You can also practice in many different rhythms. I did a video on this. I can guide you guys to that. Maybe you're having a problem just specifically with the articulation. So maybe, your double tonguing is not quite regular, or even then maybe you just want to slow it down and really check that your double tonguing is working well. Particularly what I love to do, if I have like a staccato passage or double tongue passage, I practice it legato. So I just practice it all slurred, making sure that the airstream and the breath support and everything is really still there, and then adding the tongue again with that same sort of breath support. Often this kind of fixes the problem if I'm like blah, blah, falling over my tonguing or my fingering. You might also really want to just like practice it very slowly and feeling completely calm and at ease and no stress. Maybe you want to practice it in emotion. So you're playing a fast passage, and as you're coming up to that passage, you're practicing the feeling of being like, cool, I got this, I can do this, this is easy. You want to ask yourself, is this problem just specific to this piece that I'm playing? Like, is this just a thing now? Or is this problem part of something bigger? Like, is this like a more fundamental problem in my playing, or is this just now this moment? The real importance of this question, we're going to kind of discuss mostly in the last video that we do when we're looking at the overall kind of practice structure. If you find like, okay, oh my word, there's like a fundamental problem going between E and F, which like most of us have, just by the way, or maybe you're struggling with octaves, you're finding your octaves just aren't even, or you're jumping your octaves too fast or whatever, write that problem down. Say to yourself, okay, I'm putting that down. I've got a little logbook and E to F combination or octaves. Write that problem down as like one of your little fundamental things. We're going to talk about how to fix that, when to fix that, where to fix that in the last video of this series. So stay tuned for that. But for now, just identify, write it down, get it done. Right. I really recommend when you're getting to a piece, don't just start from the beginning and play it through every time. As you're practicing, as you're discovering what the problem areas are, you kind of know where to go to first. When you're starting a practice session, you're like, okay, cool, got this piece. You know where to go to first in those pieces. So set a very clear target for your practice. Are you trying to figure out what the problems are or where the problems are? Or do you know what the problem is and you actually just want to go straight to that problem and fix it? You might want to kind of like even write these down. Like you really write down like, okay, these are the problems in this piece, or these are the areas in this piece that I need to practice and like look at and work through. The next kind of big area that I think is important to practice is breathing and phrasing. This is something that we so often kind of just like, I don't know, leave to chance or who knows what. We get into a concert and then we're like, where am I actually breathing? Or what am I actually doing here? If you really want to be like disciplined about this, you're really going to go through phrase by phrase and you're going to ask yourself the question, where is the high point of the phrase? Like, what is the shape of this phrase? What is the like most important point? What are the least important points? What is the character? What is the mood? What is the color? What is the dynamic of this phrase? Where am I breathing? What is actually a good place to breathe in this phrase? And you want to mark in that breathing spot. Like, I cannot stress the importance of this enough. There are two things I mark primarily in my music when I'm, marking stuff in music. The one is breathing, the other is fingerings. Like if I'm putting my B flat key down or not. I spoke in one of my first practice videos about the importance of having a pencil. So make sure you have your pencil so you can really do that. Go through your phrases like this. Also practicing your actual breathing. Like if you're struggling to get through a passage with your breathing, practice getting through. Practice maybe that whole phrase just on one long note, seeing that you can actually get through and then progressively add more and more of the notes of the phrase. It's a great strategy. Sometimes what I've even done is I've taken that phrase and I've actually slowed it down to even like a slower tempo and then sped it up again. And I found that, now I'm getting through the phrase with air to spare, in fact, because I've trained kind of going through it really slowly. But basically you just need to practice the breath control and how you're going to breathe. You also want to think a little bit about the character, or the overall mood or character of the piece. Think of an overarching story. Like what story are you telling? Like what is going on in this music? Is it just like notes, or are you actually telling a story to someone? I've even gone through the process of actually writing out a story for a piece. I really find, in terms of having a direction and a musical intention and having some kind of like a sense of conveying something to people and not just playing notes, I find this such a cool and helpful, amazing process. Now these different sections, so like looking at the technical aspects of things, looking at the little like micro phrasing stuff, and looking at the bigger sections and the bigger kind of overall character, don't need to happen in that order. They can happen all at the same time. They can happen, intermingled. They can happen in the reverse order. Whatever you like. A lot of these things are also happening already in the note learning process. They aren't exclusively only now you're going to start like thinking of the music. Like they kind of should be happening, on levels all the time. I do find it very useful to have a very clear intention for each practice session. So like say to yourself, okay, now I'm going to be like really working out my musical intention of this piece. Maybe I'm going to spend some time really at the like micro phrasing level, looking at what's going on with my phrases. I find this gives me a more direction and focus and purpose in my practice, which, I just kind of love. I'm going to be making kind of like handouts of this whole practice series. Basically, this is going to be kind of like a PDF format of all the kind of like main points that I'm discussing in these videos and kind of tying it together in like a written format. It's available to all my patrons on Patreon. For those of you who don't know what it's all about, go check out the link below. Go check it out. Basically, this is a really awesome site where you can support video creators like me. You can pledge even just like $5 a month, guys, and you get access to all this cool content that you normally would have to pay for. So go check that out. I will be uploading these onto my website when I'm done with this series. You can actually purchase them as like a full PDF package of the whole kind of practice series in one go. Until then, everybody, happy practicing and see you next time.